Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but you knew that, and if you didn't know that, you know that now. And today we have a great guest for you today. He is an author. And I said this in the pre-interview, he's a prolific author. He's written 15 books. He calls it his addiction. I call it a gift. And it's amazing what he's done. He's been on the show before, and it's great to have Jeff with us again. Jeff Rasley is our guest, and he is, gosh, boy, if I were to describe all the things you've done and all the places you've been, and I've always wondered about riding a motorcycle across the country. And of course, I would probably fall down and hurt myself and end up in the emergency room. And so I haven't done that. But Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin. It's good to be back. I'm hanging in there, like you and I were talking about before we went on the air. Both of us are old codgers now, but we're still alive and kicking, upright and ambulatory, so no complaints.
That's exactly right. And it's a marvelous place to be because we're still young enough to enjoy things, but we're old enough to know better of things that we probably shouldn't do anymore. And also that we have the memories and the experiences that, in your case, a lot of those somehow magically, without pause, end up in a book.
True. Yeah. Probably about half of my books are either memoirs based on travel adventures, or are fiction that were inspired by actual experiences I had. So, yeah.
Well, and you just have a book that just came out, and that came out last month. And the name of the book again is
The Day Big Ed Came to Parkside School.
And it's a marvelous story of a young man who came to your small town school and shook things up a little bit and changed the hierarchy of the sixth grade students around him. Would you say that's kind of the gist, sort of?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a crew of us who we called our little gang the Rats, and which was based on a Frankie and Annette beach party movie. And we thought we were the cool guys who ran the playground. And this kid shows up right near the end of school. I mean, there were only a few weeks left in sixth grade. And so in our elementary school, the highest grade was sixth grade. So we were the oldest kids. And this kid was almost 6 foot tall and had the start of whiskers. And he dressed very sophisticated as compared to us. And so we sort of offered him to join our gang, which he thought we were quite ridiculous, and he didn't want to have anything to do with this stupid little gang. So, of course, that meant we had to challenge him to a fight, but we had very strict rules as far as fights at Parkside School went, and that you could only wrestle, you couldn't hit or kick, and it would take place in the sandbox on the playground after school. And so, well, he said he'd take on our whole gang of 5 guys, but and so we said, well, honor required that we would only wrestle him one at a time, and 2 of our guys didn't show up wisely. But three of us did, and he proceeded to thrash us one at a time.
Well, and we were talking about this beforehand, but isn't it remarkable the stories that happened to us when we're in sixth grade? Because what are you in sixth grade? You are, 11 or 12, somewhere in there?
Yep, 11 and 12.
And so you're 11 years old, and you get. And by the way, speaking of being 11 years old, we she's gonna kill me. I want to bring.
We have an 11-year-old joining us.
We do. It seems like it. It seems off.
That's so rude, Kevin. Thank you for the welcome in. And hi, Jeff. How are you? Just so you know, I'm 26, not
Hi,
11.
hi, Michelle.
Well, she's she's young enough to be a granddaughter to you and I.
Yep,
Hmm.
very
So,
young.
so in any event, Jeff, I wanted to. By the way, as you've looked at his website and stuff, Brichelle, he has written, of course, 15 books. He's also
Mhm.
traveled around the world. He's done exactly the things that you would love to be able to do. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to pick his brain and to talk to him about riding a motorcycle across the country or going all around the world and hitchhiking and doing all the stuff that he did. So and he's a hiker, and he goes
Mm,
in the wilderness and talks
he
to
loves
plants and
wilderness.
stuff.
Yes, me too. I love that. Everything about all of that, I absolutely am a fan of. Really, Jeff, I have to ask you, where did it start? What made you decide to just make the first move and just do it? Just go somewhere and see what happens.
Well, it started when I started college. So I started college, and I really didn't want to be in school anymore. I mean, I'd been in school my whole life.
Yeah.
So after the first semester, I dropped out. I worked in a factory for 6 weeks, saved up $65, and went out to the end of the road in my small town, stuck out my thumb, and hitchhiked from northern Indiana down to Key West and then over to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and eventually made it back home with $5 left in my pocket. So that
Wow.
was my first big adventure, and it sort of gave me the confidence, or maybe overconfidence, to feel like I could, do most anything I wanted to try. And so from there, next year I motorcycled across the country down through Mexico, then hitchhiked all around Europe, um, and eventually started doing and eventually leading expeditions over in the Nepal Himalayas, and then did that for 20 years. Um,
Wow.
and now, as I was talking with Kevin before the show started, after a hip replacement last year, I think I may be limited to slowly riding my bicycle around
Yeah,
walking trails in Indianapolis. But, we'll see.
that
Well,
is amazing.
and surprisingly enough, Rochelle, a lot of these adventures have ended up in a book one way or another.
I
And
see.
and also he's my age now, somewheres in there. And so the stories that he tells, he told me this beforehand, if I could paraphrase, Jeff, when my dad was getting older, he said to me, as my dad was getting older, he started to tell stories about the past, and because he started reminiscing about all these things he'd done in the past. And so he started telling us all these stories. Now Jeff is doing the same thing to his kids like I do to my kids. Like, Jeff, you'll get a kick out of this. I asked my oldest son, I said, how come you don't laugh at my jokes anymore? And he said, Dad, you've been telling the same jokes for 30 years. I'm tired of them.
And they're dad jokes, right?
I can't even
So many.
remember. They're tied to things like old movie scripts and sayings and stuff and things that we used to do and stuff. And so, but he apparently is tired of that stuff. So,
Nah, we
um,
need to bring
Yeah.
it back.
I need to have another 100. I need to have another 100 years of life so that I have more stories to tell.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you can bore your great grandchildren and great grandchildren with those same stories.
And they'll go, "Oh, great grandpa, shut up. I've heard it before."
My
So,
kids
Well, see,
sometime I think it's so funny.
the wonderful thing about being a writer is I have this other outlet, so I don't have to punish my two boys and my one grandson with telling them these stories. I can tell the rest of the world, and they can groan about it or laugh or find something meaningful in it.
well, and that's a cool thing also about what I do is because there are lots of people who haven't heard the stories that my son is tired of listening to. And so they're like, that's really amazing. How did that happen and stuff? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's great fun. And we were also, Brachelle, do you remember sixth grade at all?
Yes. Oh, it was a rough time. I did not like school. I was a small kid. I was weird and obnoxious. I got bullied tons. But it made my skin a little tougher, I'll say that.
And Jeff
Well,
just, go ahead.
that's hard to believe. You were weird and small and uncool. Now here you are, this beautiful,
Yeah.
accomplished person.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's kind of weird sometimes. I look at myself and I'm like, oh, that's the same person. Kind of weird.
But she is still really little.
Yeah, just
Um,
a baby still, according to Kevin.
Well,
well,
see, it's hard to tell on the screen. I
Yeah.
mean, you look bigger than that Ferris wheel behind you.
Well, I'm glad I'm not, because if I was, there might be some problems. But I like being young and also very open because, like you, I get to experience things that maybe most people would hold back from, or they say, you gotta be realistic and set your dreams to the side when you can make your dreams your reality. And someday I'll be able to write all the books about it just like you did.
and
Good
and you
attitude.
and Jeff, I got to tell you that Ferris wheel that you see in the background. She is actually coming to see me in a couple of weeks, and then
Yes.
there is a restaurant that we're going to go to. It's called the Crab Pot. Have you ever been to Seattle?
I have, but a long time ago.
Oh, well, what that is they take Dungeness crab and king crab and mussels and scallops and clams and put it into a big pot, and then they bring it to your table and they turn the pot over onto the table, and then you eat all the stuff from where it lies on the table. It's called the Crab
Ooh.
Pot. It really is a
Wow.
unique place.
That would be quite an experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. And then so I'm going to gift her that experience, maybe, if I can figure out how to get downtown still. You know how that goes.
Well, I have a niece in Seattle, and the vice president of our Basa Village Foundation lives in Seattle. So I'm going to have to demand that they invite me out so I can have that experience.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed. And Jeff, when I was looking at your bio, not only are you a world traveler, but you have got a heart of gold and you've worked for many nonprofits and you've worked for folks and you've led some. And tell us and our listeners a little bit about your work. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this first. Let's take our break first. And then when we come back, I want you to kind of fill us in on your philosophy of life and why you've taken the attitude that I'm going to give back and I'm going to help other people. And you do that through work in nonprofits and others. Can we do that?
Let's do it.
Cheers.
You're in Indiana. It's time. It's time to have cheers and stuff. So we'll be right back. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle. To date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Rochelle is here. I just love it when you're here. I miss it when you're not here. And Jeff Rasley is here. He's an author of 15 books. He's a world traveler, and he gives back. And he works for a lot of nonprofits, and he's done a lot of things to help other people in his community and elsewhere. Have I misstated that at all, sir?
I'm sure my wife and mother would appreciate that glowing description.
Well, but it's true, and even though you're not boastful about it, you've done a lot of work to give back to your community in the areas that you're passionate about, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, there was one point where I was serving on the board of 11 different nonprofit organizations. I've cut it down to 3 now. So, yeah.
And still doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm the president of 2 foundations, charitable foundations, and then I serve on the board of another one, which is called the Indianapolis Peace and Justice Center, and it's really it's an organization that's devoted to social justice, and we put on forums and programs about specific issues and try to get people, better educated and more involved in helping to make the community of Indianapolis and wider world a better and more just place.
Although you have the Indianapolis Colts, which is that's a personal problem for me because Mr. Ize, I think it's Ize. Is that
Irsay.
Yeah.
Irsay.
Yes. He took my Baltimore Colts away and moved them to Indianapolis. It made me so sad.
I feel your pain. I really do. But I'm glad he did it. And you got the Ravens, and they're playing much better than the Colts anyway.
Well, the story behind that is when I was a kid, I live in Seattle, and we had no major league. The biggest thing that we had was the hydroplane races on Lake Washington, and we didn't have a baseball team. We had the Sonics, and now the Sonics are gone. They're in Oklahoma, of all places. So and the Mariners have never been to the World Series. I'm lamenting a little bit here, but my parents bought me a uniform, and it was a Baltimore Colt uniform because we didn't have a football team. So I became a fan of the Baltimore Colts, and with Johnny Unitas and with with Mackey and John Mackey and Billy Ray Smith and Bubba Smith, and all those guys. And then they woke up one day and they got into a big truck and moved to Indianapolis. But I'm glad they did for you because it's a wonderful franchise.
Well, we're happy they came, but they really did do it in a kind of a crappy way that, pulling up at night and moving everything out under cover of darkness. I mean, yeah.
Well, Baltimore people are pretty passionate. I don't think they could have done that in the day and during the day,
There would have been
like
a riot.
there would
Yeah.
there would have been problems. But I wanted to ask you, in one of the nonprofits that you're talking about, you talk about social justice, and that is become a kind of a big topic in the country of what exactly that is, and wokeism and all this kind of, what does social justice mean in terms of the nonprofits you work with?
Well, I think essentially it means that everybody, no matter where you start in life, should have an opportunity to, as Rochelle was saying earlier, to try to achieve your dreams. And I don't think that that means that we turn into a communist state where we divide everything up equally. I don't think that's justice either. But I guess, the way I see it is the Scandinavian system, which has a capitalist economy, but a very generous social welfare system so that everybody has health care, everybody's guaranteed education, that they can go as far as they want, regardless of, whether they're wealthy or not wealthy. And so the Scandinavians or the Nordic countries, however you want to call them, have figured out that you can have a vibrant capitalist economy so that people with ambition can be rewarded for being creative and hardworking, but that everybody will be entitled to a sort of a basic essentials like education, healthcare, a decent infrastructure, and will be able to take themselves as far as they can go without being so hindered with whether their parents have a lot of money or not.
I have a good friend that, as a matter of fact, this song I just played, he wrote and produced and helped me, and I helped him produce it. He's in Sweden, and he was telling me some of the most unusual things. As an example, they have bomb shelters there because of where they are physically located that are like shopping centers underneath the ground. They have Olympic-sized swimming pools in the shopping centers underneath the ground because that's how they decided to spend their money, and to protect their people from what could a calamity that could happen with another country or something. I found that to be really, what they also have, which I think is a really, 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 did I say really cool idea? They have a 2-year compulsory program for kids getting out of high school that they serve the country for 2 years. What a radical idea that would be, don't you think?
Well, what this reflects is this difference in values that in America, we have this, hardy individualism, take care of yourself, except we're very hypocritical about it because we only apply that when it advantages us. Whereas in a country like Sweden, it's community first. Let's think about what would be good for the community as opposed to what would be good for me. So see, in America, just take bomb shelters. You want a bomb shelter, build it yourself, pay for it. Government's not going to provide it for you, except for the rich and powerful people that run the government. They've got government provided shelters. And I mean, you can go to all sorts of different issues and see that the Scandinavian countries, it's what will help the community is our first concern, and the individual second. But when you have a community like that, what you find is people are happier that way. And if you follow the happiness quotient surveys that they do year after year after year, the Scandinavian countries come out on top. And Kevin, you and I have talked before about my experience with Basa Village in Nepal, which is this very organic community where people are very bonded, and they really don't think of themselves so much as individuals as they think of themselves as members of this community. And so, whereas we Americans, we might think, oh, well, that's not what would make you happy, because what would make me happy is, and then we start thinking about the things we want. But when we get those things we want along with everybody else, that's really enjoyable. Where it's just, if I get what I want, but you and you are deprived of it, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It leads to crime, jealousy, um, disruption. And that's what
So
we
it
have so much of here.
exactly. So it creates a me versus you scenario rather than a like the Three Musketeers. We're all in this together, and we're going to work together for betterment of everybody. And so now, whenever I say that, it's like, oh man, he strikes of socialism. Oh no, how,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad you're doing the work that you're doing, because it's important work, and the word has to get out there. If somebody wants to donate to these nonprofits, or to find out more about them, how do they go do that?
I have a website. It's in my full name. So jeffreyrasley.com, and the Scientech Foundation, which I'm the president of, the Basa Village Foundation, each has a link on it. Indianapolis Peace and Justice Center does not have a link because we let our website go down a couple of years ago. We decided it really wasn't worth the money, because we want to have programs where we bring people together. There's so much that happens online, and like what we're doing right now, it's wonderful. But it's also wonderful to actually get people in a room together. And so that's what we try to do.
I think it's wonderful what you're doing. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I think it's really
Thanks.
encouraging. I've thought of so many ways in my life where I've been in the direction of being involved in a nonprofit, whether I liked it or not. And really, the difference that it's able to make can kind of make or break a situation for somebody. There's so many resources I hear, they're so far outside the world. And it kind of gets my brain thinking, like, what made you come back here? Because if that were me and I've learned all this about all these other places, yes, I would love my family to be close to me and things like that. But if I'm financially free, then I can have my family still be close to me and still be in a distance somewhere in another country, just kind of thriving and living a different lifestyle than we are used to here.
Well, yeah, I'm at times I find myself tempted to ditch this country with all its problems, and which seem like it's has gotten worse rather than better since this last
Yeah.
election. But this is where my roots are. My family came here a long, long time ago. One side of my family were actually in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, very early immigrants from England, and the other side of the camp family came just before the Revolutionary War to escape. Uh, so anyway, so I'm rooted here, and I want to be an American, and I want America to get better. And but something I wanted to say to Rochelle is, what you were saying before is what I say to young people who are kind of looking out ahead about their own future is, create a life that's beautiful. Think of your life as a work of art, and not just as something to struggle through and overcome obstacles and challenges, which it is. That
Yeah.
is part of life. But if you think of it, and not just long term, but every day, that what you're doing is you're creating a work of light, a work of art through the way you live, then I think you'll find it easier to engage with things that are positive for you, but are also beneficial to the other people in the community that you're engaging with.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for that feedback. If anybody else around my age is listening, take that too. I think we kind of get lost in our day-to-day life, and maybe think about the future a little too much, when really it's just, right now in our present moment, how beautiful and meaningful can we make each moment that we're here and why we do what we do. So being coherent will definitely change your life.
Yeah,
Jeff,
no, I mean, that's right.
I really wish that I had the opportunity to know what she's going to have the opportunity to know at 26 when I was 26, and I didn't have to wait 40 years after that. But we're talking with Jeff Rasley. He is an author of 15, count them, 15 books, and he's working on a book with his wife, which is probably going to take another 20 years. But that's just, I don't know. So we need to take a break for our station break, and we will be right back. More with Jeff and Rochelle and me. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I am. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Rochelle. That's her. That's the famous one right there. And me. My name is Kevin McDonald. And there's a cat. There's a either that or that's the biggest rat I've ever seen. But that's probably a cat. Yeah.
Oh, hey, me
love
too.
Rochelle's got cats around her house and 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 big dogs and stuff like that. And that cat loves you. You can tell.
Well, Kevin, I was sure you wouldn't mind if Poppy joined the show.
Of course not. Of course,
Love that.
we love animals because animals add so much to our fabric of life, and they are unconditional about. I often say I had a dog. His name was Crockett, and he's the only one that I could be assured of when I walked in the house that he'd wag his tail and was happy to see me. My kids and the wife, nope, couldn't guarantee that, but him every time.
Yep, I get it.
so and even when he passed, it was a devastating thing for me, but we're talking with Jeff Rasley. He is Jeff. I got to ask you, because I was thinking about this. You've been all over the world. You've met people from all over the world. That gives you, and I've talked to other people that have done the same types of things that you've done, and versus people that live in, I don't know, north I'm not going to pick on a city, but they've been in the United States in a particular place their whole life. You have a different perspective. You have more of a global perspective of what life is all about, don't you?
Yeah, well, one of the books I wrote a number of years ago, actually after the 2016 election that was so polarizing, the Clinton versus Trump election, um, I decided I wanted to dig into why our country was so polarized, and how had that developed. And one of the things that uh, became so crystal clear to me was the divide between urban and rural. And if you looked at a map of every single precinct in the United States for that 2016 election and colored the ones that went for Trump red and the ones that went for Clinton blue, Trump won almost every single rural precinct across the entire country. It didn't matter which state it was. Clinton won almost every single urban precinct. Didn't matter which state it was in. And this divide, I think, is partly due to what the point you're making, Kevin. People who live in urban areas are exposed to more different types of people. They're exposed to more different cultures. People who live their whole lives in a rural area um, are it's just more insular. And I grew up in a small town. I spent a lot of time in this very rural village in Nepal, which is very insulated from the outside world. And there's beautiful aspects to either of those settings for a life and family and community. But when it comes to um, dealing with things like social justice, to have had a wider experience, to have been with people who have very different points of view than you do, who have very different background than you do, and have to negotiate friendly relations with them, it gives you a much more tolerant attitude, and it gives you a much more sense of, we really need to work things out so that we can all get along peacefully. Whereas in a small, like the town I grew up in, we didn't lock our doors just because everybody knew each other and you were sort of automatically accountable. Well, that's not the way it is in a big city. So it creates a really different outlook on all sorts of things, like how you solve problems. Um, what do people need as sort of a basic way to get along, or how to get along in life. And so that experience of traveling widely, experiencing a lot of different cultures and types of people, I think creates a much greater sense of tolerance, but also an understanding of it's not simple on how we have to negotiate things like social justice.
Years ago, I went to Florida with my wife and her parents. First time I've been to Florida. I grew up my whole life in Washington State, which, of course, in the middle of the country. When I was working in Arkansas, they were saying, "Oh, you're from the left coast over there. That's where people think about, you're a liberal. God darn it, you're a liberal." And anyway, so we were in a grocery store, and I noticed that all the people who happen to be African American, which meant that they have a darker color to their skin, that's all it means to me, they wouldn't look me in the eye. They wouldn't look my wife in the eye. They looked down whenever we would, because in Seattle we were at that time a friendly place, and so we would say hi. They wouldn't respond, and they would look down, because that's what they were expected to do in that particular culture at that particular time. It was a real revelation for me that there were people that did not feel like they could express themselves naturally because of societal expectations that, you got to know your place, boy. You keep your head down. You don't talk to us like that. You don't, and that was, and then I worked throughout the South selling dead chicken. And I learned a lot about race relations and how we're still in many places in this country, especially rural places. There are people who have never seen or have never interacted with somebody who doesn't look just like them. Have you found that to be true?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced in this country some, really isolated communities where, first of all, the people are hard to understand. Um,
I don't know
you know,
what you're talking about. He doesn't. Yes.
yeah. I mean, these dialects that develop when your community is isolated like that is, I mean, I like to hear that. It's really interesting. But the thing, if you have a community that's very isolated and it works, then that can be really beautiful. I mean, like Basa Village in Nepal, it's a beautiful, they have a beautiful life as long as the weather cooperates and their crops come in and their animals survive. Um, but they don't have they don't have to negotiate the problems like we do on things, like we were talking before about all these different issues of social justice. Mm. They have a system that they've been living with for 500 years the same way, generation after generation, and it works for them.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be nice to, Brichelle, and I'll address this to you. Wouldn't it be nice? Now, you're young, so you have lots and lots of time to affect change in the culture, and I really hope that you do, because it's going to be ever increasingly more important that we all get along, that we all recognize that it doesn't matter who we love, what we look like, who we call God. None of that matters. It's a matter of how we treat each other with kindness and with affection and love. And so we failed miserably. So it's now up to your generation. I hope you take the bull by the horns and to make it work.
Yeah, that is definitely my plan. I know that I'm here for something bigger and a little more extravagant than maybe the average person. But I'm ready for it, and I'm perfectly fine with that because what I learn um, is my legacy that I'm leaving behind. It's not the money and the cars and the houses and all this and that. But yes, of course, all those things. But that's not what's really first in my mind because how did I get to that point? What did I learn? What am I passing along? I see nowadays it's like a lot of younger people, they'll get left with a lot of money from a passing or something that happened in later years that they weren't even involved in, and they don't know what to do with it. Or they get a company let down to them. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then when it comes to like being socially justice with each other is a whole different ball game because we have to also remember that the way others treat us and how they perceive themselves is the same thing. It's not different. They treat you based off the way they feel. So I think a lot of it is really kind of trying to come together and building a community, like you said, Jeff, and making it more than just all these different age groups and ideas and things, oh, you're that kind of style and you wear that kind of style because people continue to surprise me. No matter where I go, what I see, you look at somebody, it's kind of like, don't judge a book by its cover because you don't know what's underneath. And a lot of these people that I have in my life, you'd be like, what? Not only am I related to them, but they are extremely different than me. And we've learned to navigate and still have all of our needs met and just have respect and love each other for exactly who we are with no judgment and an open heart. And sometimes even a little bit of criticism that can be good.
She gives me hope, Jeff, for the next generation.
Yeah.
Hope so. I hope so. I'll do my
Me
best,
too.
I promise.
Well, it's all up to you now. We
Okay,
are passing the torch.
okay, that's fine. I'll put the backpack on. I'm ready to ride with it. I've built the muscles. So,
But
Right
Jeff,
on.
you've got lots more books to write, lots more adventures to have. Um,
yeah.
as soon as your hip heals, you're going to be off and running doing something else. I guarantee it.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I've my wife and I joke. I with a few years ago, I was climbing mountains in the Himalayas, and now I'm taking walks in the neighborhood with my wife, and you know, the the aging process is definitely something that causes interesting challenges to cope with. And so instead of going to Nepal or India and writing books about that, my wife and I took out a small town in Indiana every weekend. And we drive there and then we walk around, we meet local people, take pictures, ask some questions, and then research the history of the town, uh, write up a little post about it for Facebook, but we're preserving the posts and the research, and eventually this is going to turn into a book. And so, instead of Mount Everest, I'm visiting Lagodi, Indiana.
Hey, that's cool though, because you are a tourist in your own city. Me and Kevin were just talking about that. Um, and I know we need to take a quick break, but when we come back, I have a question for you about your favorite scenery. Like out of all the places you traveled out of nature, what was the one of the most beautiful places of scenery? So I'll let you think that through while we're through the break.
Brilliant. Simply brilliant. Well, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, please.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew a girl so smart, so responsible, she must be a keeper.
Well, and welcome back to Positive Talk. And today we have a wonderful author. His name is Jeff Rasley, and Brichelle is here too. It's just wonderful. I don't know why I do that, Jeff. Maybe it's an attention thing. I'm trying to get attention by doing accents and stuff like that. I don't know. But in any event, Jeff Rasley is here and Brichelle's here. And Brichelle asked him a question. Because we ain't as young as we used to be, remind Jeff what the question you asked him was in case he forgot.
Yes, out of all the places that you have traveled around the world, what has been the most beautiful scenery for a sight for the eyes and the
And
heart?
I'm not gonna answer in a fake Scottish or Irish brogue either.
How do you
Uh,
know that's fake? I'm Irish. My last name's McDonald. Stop it. Okay, go ahead.
Show me your kilt. Um,
Yeah.
I'd have to stand up first, you know. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah. Um, well, there are two places. One is the Kalalau Trail on the island of Kauai, which is one of the Hawaiian islands. It's this absolutely beautiful hiking trail. It's 11 miles long, which doesn't sound very long, but it's a very difficult trail. But as you go along the trail, you have to cross three streams, which, if the water gets high, they turn into rivers, which becomes challenging. There's waterfalls you see. And then when you come to the very end of the trail, it opens up onto this beach. And so there's big, long expanse, sandy beach, the ocean, and then off in directly in front of you is a waterfall down this rocky cliff, which since you're hot and tired, you can there's your shower. And then the other one is the most beautiful mountain, I think, in the Nepal Himalayas is called Ama Dablam, which means mother's milk. Uh, and you see it when you're hiking the Mount Everest Base Camp Trail. It's about halfway from where most people start hiking towards Everest, from a village called Lukla in Nepal that you fly up to, and which is an amazing experience because the airstrip, there's a sheer rock wall at this end of the strip, and then at this end, it's a sheer drop off. And there's actually parts of airplanes that didn't negotiate it very well along the side of it. But hiking to Mount Everest, you see this one just gorgeous mountain. And I mean, the mountains are all spectacular, the ice and snow and rocks and the sunlight glinting off of it. It's beautiful. But this one, it's just the shape is really cool. It's kind of like it has shoulders and a head. So it's sort of, shaped like we are, we are right now looking at each other like that. And it's covered with snow down to about where the breast area would be. And then it's rocky. And you get to look at it every day as you're getting closer and closer to Mount Everest. So that one.
Wow.
And there are so few people that have viewed that in person. That do you feel special? You are, but do you feel special?
My mommy tells me I am.
Oh,
That's
see,
exactly what I would have said.
it's contagious. See, my silliness is contagious. So there.
Yeah. My two sons don't tell me that, but
Neither do mine. When I can get them to talk to me without a checkbook in my hand, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
So, in any event, but Jeff, it is. Thank you for coming back. We've had several shows with you, and they're all top rate, and they're all wonderful, and you provide our audience with a unique perspective on our planet and our life and how we can live all together in peace and harmony. And that's really isn't a pipe dream. It can be done if we all agree that we are going to be nice to one another. Do you agree?
Well said. Love, peace, harmony.
Or
And I love, Jeff, how you prove the point that the future doesn't matter all that much. We think we know what's going to happen, but I bet when you were starting your travels at a younger age, you weren't like, you know what I'm going to do when I get to the end of it? I'm going to go back to Indiana. I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to build some businesses and some nonprofits and help people. That's what became a part of your journey. And we get so caught up on okay, well, I'm going to do this and I have to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And we try to put everything in order and make it all make sense. I think we take it a little bit too seriously. So to have you sit here and have all these experiences of life and the world and people and culture and food and just different dynamics and way of living, and thinking about how sheltered we are kind of here, we need to definitely expand a little more. And I love that you came back and you're doing that work and you're helping the younger generation of kids who don't have the opportunity to just have what they need and get everything they want and have support doing it. So thank you for being a part of that and really trying to build that up. I think it will make the greatest difference that you could ever imagine, even when you're gone.
And I want to this is a metaphor of life that I'd like to introduce to everybody if you haven't figured it out yet. Jeff has traveled all over the world. He's done all kinds of things, but you know where it started from? It started from the simple act of sticking out his thumb to hitch a ride down the road. And
Which I
all
don't
of it,
recommend anymore, Kevin.
not
I would
anymore.
say have a little bit more than the $60 and a thumb, but yes.
But the more important
Yeah.
thing is whether it be you're going to get on a bus and you're just going to go where the bus goes, or whatever it is, take a chance with your life to live, and you don't know where it's going to end up, and how wonderful and impactful it can be, who you're going to meet, all the people you meet, the cultures you get to interact with, the places you get to go. And have you, by the way, have you climbed Mount Everest?
No, I've been to base camp several times and I've climbed mountains around it, but to climb with needing oxygen was never appealing to me. If I wanted to use oxygen, I wanted to scuba dive and go underwater.
See, and there you are.
Not, yeah, I want to climb naturally. But one
And
thing, Rochelle, what you were saying in your follow-up, Kevin, reminds me of a metaphor I've often used especially for younger people thinking about, my life and what am I going to do is think of it like a surfer. I mean, waves come, so wave will come. That one doesn't look so good. Oh, this wave, it looks good. Let me ride it. Just ride it. See where it takes you. And there'll be another one. And if this one doesn't work out, paddle back out, another one will come. Some you'll pass by, and oh damn, I wish I would have taken that one. But another one will come.
that's a wonderful metaphor. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
And that comes with a lot of wisdom from a lot of places and a lot of books and a lot of time. And Jeff Rasley has been our guest. Jeff, we're going to run out of time, so Brachelle's going to ask you the final question, right, Brachelle?
Yes. Yes. Well, two things. Two things. First, well, I guess he kind of gave us a metaphor. We usually ask, what's something that you'd love to tell our audience, if there's anything more? And then also your website and your nonprofits and maybe your newest book.
Website is jeffreyrasley.com. The last book was The Day Big Ed Came to Parkside School. And it's a short story. It's published as a book, but it's only 25 pages long. So it's a quick, easy read. And then the three nonprofits I'm involved with now is the Basa Village Foundation, Scientech Foundation of Indiana. And what it does is we give away about $250,000 every year to educational programs that mostly impact kids that can't afford extracurricular type education. So summer camps, especially we support a bunch of summer science camps for kids throughout Indiana. And then the Indianapolis Peace and Justice Center, I already mentioned what it does with its educational programs about social justice. And the Basa Village Foundation, I just very quick have to tell you, our current project, which we just funded, is really cool. We're buying 15 piglets for the village, and they're starting their very first communal co-op business. They're going to raise pigs and goats and sell the milk and yogurt. And we're also funding their English teacher because for some reason the government cut off funding that teacher. So we're paying the English teacher's salary as well. And we raised the funds successfully for that. And so that's going to happen.
Oh, that
Yay.
is just brilliant. Isn't it amazing how often governments are so short-sighted that they're not going to pay the salary of I don't know, an English teacher?
Well, and the really bizarre thing is the government mandates that English be taught in
God.
every Nepali school. and they were paying for it, and then they just say, sorry.
I tell you. Jeff Rasley has been our guest. Go to his website, which is jeffreyrasley.com, right?
Yes.
And It's a pleasure having you here. We're looking forward to having you back next time. Brachelle, thank you so much. You add so much to this presentation.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
she
you.
didn't add that much. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank
I'm
you one and
sticking
all.
out my thumb.
Keep that. You should bronze that thumb because it's important.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.